Welcome to Networking Star, the podcast where we explore the strategies of successful entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Jeffery Boyle, and together we're going to dive into the world of business connections, growth, and innovations. Today, I'm joined by Chris Buelow. Chris is the founder of Fortitude 360. He's an executive and team performance coach, and I'm super excited to have you with me, Chris. Welcome to Networking Star.
Thanks, Jeffrey. It's good to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what it means to be a performance coach. You know, a lot of times people will hire coaches for athletics, they'll hire a singing coach, but what does a performance coach do for an executive and his teams?
Well, I think, performance, when you talk about high performance, and I look at high performance as in executive leadership or leadership teams as anyone that wakes up every day and wants to improve themselves or their teams for the benefit of serving, their teams or their people. They might already have high performance, might already achieve it, but they continue to strive and want more. So with my coaching, it's really just customized approach with them on, hey, what blind spots are you trying to uncover? What do you want? And a customized approach, because everybody's different. And the last thing that I want to do is come in and tell somebody, hey, this is what you need to do, because in reality, it's helping them gain insight on what they need to do based on their culture and who they are and who they want to become.
So a lot of times you talk about blind spots. What are some of the most common blind spots for these high performers? It doesn't matter if men or women. You have people that are out there killing it, grinding it, and really, creating amazing results. What are some of the blind spots that a lot of those leaders typically have?
Yeah, good question. Self-awareness, I think, is a big one. And because I went through my own journey of personal transformation, I have a terrible resting face, right? And I realized over a period of my career that resting face was impacting my ability to impact my team in a positive way. So, once I discovered and went through my own coaching and just kind of dug into, okay, so how is this person perceiving me versus how I think it personally I'm being perceived, and then really narrowing that gap, right? So I think self-awareness is probably the biggest thing to making a lasting impact to people, because perception is reality and truth, right? And I think as you climb the ladder of leadership in an organization, you really just have to be aware of what you're doing, facial expressions, body language, and how those are being portrayed by the people that you're leading.
That's funny you talk about a resting face. I had a beard for a period, and my kids' friends thought that I was a contract killer, I think, or something like that, because between the resting face and the beard, I'm not quite sure. I had to shave it to make sure I looked a little bit more presentable. But that's interesting that you said that. Self-awareness is a big one, and so everybody's got these blind spots. So in addition to the resting face, I'm curious, because you've got me, that's something I've got to work on. But tell me a little bit about some more of the things that you've seen with some of these people that you coach that they're just completely blinded to, that is so obvious to other people.
Yeah, I think leaders, sometimes not intentionally, tend to use the word I quite a bit. And, they it depends on who you meet, right? Some leaders use it purposely because, frankly, hey, leaders, we have egos, right? Some don't intend to use it, but the way that's perceived by others, right? It's always should be we. And at the end of the day, you should always look out the window. If you're achieving at a high level, look out the window of the team that you're working with that helped you created that. And if there's not high performance, if there's something missed, then you need to look in the mirror, right? And that's the way I always approach it. But I think just little things like that is, using I. Sometimes in meetings, it's wanting to be the loudest person in the room, right? Wants to talk the most. I can tell you the most impactful leaders that I've been around hardly ever talk in meetings. And when they did, they asked great questions to provide further insight or to get further insight from the team, right? And I think leaders, sometimes we think that we're supposed to give advice, right? And a lot of times it's not giving advice, it's asking questions to help the other person see maybe a world that they haven't seen before.
Yeah, it's interesting, as you talk about that. It doesn't matter if I was the boss or if I was the employee. I look back into just the dynamics that boardrooms create, and just the difficulties that you have as a leader to be able to truly inspire your people. There's a book by Tim, Tim, I think it's Grover. He's the trainer from Michael Jordan and and Kobe Bryant. So he obviously knows how to work with high performers. And in the book, he talked about a difficult and demanding salesperson that the team fired because she intimidated the other salespeople. And one of the things that he said is I could never understand why people think that demanding is a negative trait. Explain a little bit of that. I've been accused of being demanding. I know I'm demanding of myself and the people who are around me. Why do you think it's so difficult for demanding or high performance people to be accepted by their employees?
Well, a lot of people, I think if you're in that, the high performance realm, Jeffrey, it's you're the elite, right? And let's just say, frankly, there's not a lot of people that are in that bucket yet, right? So they don't necessarily know how you think, how you feel, and because they don't think like you. And sometimes as high performers, we expect everybody to think that, like us, right? Everybody wants to crush it. Everybody wants to win. And they might want to win, but they just want to win a different way, right? And I think it's just understanding that person. You talk about high performance and you talk about leadership. It's, back in I would say my early career as a leader, I used to come in the office and go straight into my office, get working, right? And I was perceived as, I didn't care. I didn't have empathy because, I wouldn't say hi to anybody, I wouldn't talk to anybody. And I deeply care about people, but I was being perceived as this person who didn't because I was so focused and so dialed into what I wanted to do. And I had to kind of shift. I still had to be dialed in and so focused, but, obviously, people want to be led in a different way, right? And so truly understanding and having people understand your mindset and their mindset and just closing that gap.
Well, and I think that's perception, as you said, a perception is the reality. As who's the type of person who would listen to this? A lot of times it's going to be the person who already is demanding, the kind of person who, or a person who's up and coming that wants to succeed. What would you tell that person, or even you 15 years ago or 20 years ago, as you were coming up through different ranks and learning it? What would you tell that person on how to balance being demanding, but at the same time, understanding and having those social skills to be able to give not just the appearance of, but to really show the care that you have for your team?
Yeah, I think if you can do a good job creating a vision for where you want to go, and not necessarily you, but where you and your team want to go, right? A purpose beyond the numbers, which is driving your desire, right, to continue to just steamroll ahead. And I think if your team just understands that and giving them permission to even call you out sometimes, hey, this is who I am. This is how I'm inherently driven. So sometimes if I come across as just too intense, or there's something that I'm doing that, let me know. But my desire to be number one is never going to change. And my desire to bring you along with me is never going to change. Right. So I think it's just more common understanding of how each person is driven that kind of sets the stage. And if you don't do that, I think you set yourself up for you set your team up for a life of misery. Right. But I think, as a young person, just learning, like, hey, what are some of the things that you're going to run into of being a high performer? Sometimes people just don't work at the speed that you do. And while you might think it's awesome that you're 2 miles ahead of somebody, eventually that's going to catch up to you. And pretty soon you could be looking at like, where did my team go? Right. So I just think just being aware of some of those things, you can always be, and still today I'm a high performer, but I recognize that, hey, not everybody is going to be, a Michael Jordan. Right. And so Michael Jordan, he went through that too, but, he had a different way of handling it. Right. But the ultimate, I guess, example of high performance is probably Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. Then you look at it, then even as we're recording this last week, his most faithful and the teammate who helped him the most has been highly critical of him. And I think that as a whole, you have to, as a high performer, talk a little bit about sometimes you just can't care about the criticism. And how do you balance that, being able to motivate a team at the same point if you know that there's people out there that are just unfairly criticizing you? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I think if you really intentionally have a servant heart, right? And you really want to create something beyond extraordinary, for your team. Um, you're not, you don't care in the moment, right? You care about people and so forth, but you also recognize that 5 to 10 years from this point, they're going to remember back on this and hopefully thank me for the lessons that we're going through today, right? I think Michael Jordan's case that, we can't speak for what happened with that team, but, I think he said it himself. He's like, hey, hate me if you want, but at the end of the day, look how many championships we got, right? There's always negativity, I think, surrounding leaders in general. The farther you rise in the corporate ladder, there's always people that are going to watch you. You have to recognize that, but also, there's a point where you just say, hey, I'm not like them, they're not like me, and I really can't worry about the critics, at this point.
Yeah. Well, he certainly has had, I guess when you're at the top, it's pretty easy for people to take pot shots at you and who've never done that. So as you go through with these different clients and you have some of these high performers, how is it that that they're able to duplicate their success? That's one of the big things, is a true mark of leadership is being able to not just have success yourself, but to be able to get members of your team to have success. How do you get those top people to allow people to critique them, and at the same point help them get some of their junior associates to rise up through the ranks?
Yeah, I think first thing is identify. There's always high performers, and those high performers have, they have technical skills, but I think the biggest thing is the desire to be coached, right? Is the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. It's the humility, to continue to be a sponge on getting feedback. I think the other thing is people have to recognize, while hearing things about you that is not positive it's not easy, but it's feedback, right? And feedback is a gift. And you find that the people that made the most impact and the people that have transformed the most into high performing leaders probably did that because they've heard some feedback about themselves that they needed to change. And that's how you get better. So, that would be my number one thing is, you need to be coached. You need to be coachable. You need to learn how to take feedback from others and don't take it personally. And that's hard. And I think that's a skill that's learned over time. But once you start making changes based on that feedback, and that change is positive and you see the impact, then you just desire and crave that feedback more, right? You're just now seeking feedback, like, give me more feedback, give me more feedback. And you just become this like rock, like, okay, it doesn't bother me anymore because I know what's going to do for me in the future. Yeah. Right. So that would be my biggest advice for younger emerging leaders.
So you have a number of people, and you've worked in corporate America. You've done your coaching. You've done all of these different things. So what is the biggest difference between a high performer and a peak performer? What's that difference? How does a person get from succeeding to really ethically winning at a very high level?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jeffrey. I think, I think of, in my program, I have what I call 12 superpowers of leadership that I'm just developing, right? I'm just going through right now. And I think there's certain things that people need to have. I mean, number one is what I call radical responsibility. You're responsible for your actions, right? Everything in your life you're responsible for. And, that and heart and humility, right, is so important as well. I would say those three are the biggest things, as far as peak performance. It's bringing people along with you, collaboration, and doing that as a team. I mean, nothing great ever accomplished alone, right? And I think when you get that, when you win at something with a team, you get that, feeling, and you want to continue to duplicate that, right? Or replicate that, I should say. So I think, high performance is somebody that has, again, growth mindset, radical responsibility, always having or striving for humility. Sometimes it's tough, again, because leaders do have egos, right? And then having the heart of a servant, just serving other people.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice. And it's even some of the things that you said today, the resting face is one of the ones I have certainly been accused of. And I think sometimes you really need to see how other people see you. And it's been super helpful. Chris, tell people how to find you and where you're at on the web.
Yeah, so my website is fortitude-360.com. All my information is on there on how to reach out to me and get in touch with me. And really, I just I seek to have conversations with people, and hey, can I help you? And if I can't, I'll refer you to somebody who can.
Well, very good. And we appreciate you being on there. And like I say, it's this is part of I would say the favorite thing that I have is each time when someone comes on, you have different aha moments. And if you do want to be a peak performer, it's not bad to be self-aware. So thanks for being on, Chris.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.